Welcome back to the 2025 Tire Rack One Lap of America presented by Grassroots Motorsport Magazine. These are the interviews. I'm Solomon. I'm here with Bryan, and joining us today are the winged grandpas. We have John and Wendell. Gentlemen, say hello.
Good morning.
Morning.
How y'all doing?
We're doing well. We got
Yeah.
to chat a little bit, sort of leading up to us starting the recording. But you guys are back for what number of years is this for you?
5.
5. Yeah, Bryan, we've had 2 in a row, 5 years in a row.
Yep.
So you and Scott Mattis, right? 5 years in a row now. So now you're on your 5th. So I'll ask you this because we've talked about, we'll get into the car that you're taking because I'm assuming it's sort of the same one you took last year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get into that again. And by the way, thanks for the great footage because if you haven't noticed, you're in our intros now. So that was
Yeah.
a great rolling shot we got from you guys. So let's start with this. 5 years. What has changed from when you first started doing one lap to today?
I don't know. For me, it's probably the observation of the whole field that's out there. Of the other teams, and the first year, you didn't know how anything worked. You didn't know as far as placing or who was really you know well, you could pick out the couple that was dead serious about it, but everybody else, you weren't sure. And now, usually within the first day, we kind of know. Besides just the way they're grouped, you kind of know who's out here and is separating the field. That's the biggest thing and which is great. It's just now, um, and other than that, the to me, just being comfortable around everybody has increased significantly, and the whole event, it just feels, you know but as far as observing how things have changed, is with the organization, or how it seems smoother, and I don't know if that's because of familiarity.
Sure.
For me, it was the we were shell shocked. You know, the first 2 years, or the first year really, but then after that, just trying, like John was saying, just trying to learn everything. But there was so much. You thought you were gonna miss something, and so we tried to incorporate and learn and observe other people. But I think the biggest thing is learning the group to hang with, that you got along real with, real good with, and just become real good friends. And you look forward to seeing them and making sure on the transits that they are okay and make it to the next place. And it's been great. Um, the speed creep, we've gotten faster and we're staying in the same number range of where we run. That's been humbling, I guess. But it's just awesome fun.
That's a good point though. You talk about the speed creep, and let's touch on that for a second. So it's obviously not just you, but it's everybody around you and it's relative. You guys have obviously been around the track scene for a very long time. We have our ideas as to what that speed creep has come from. What do you guys attribute that to? I mean, even for yourselves.
Go ahead.
One thing's more familiarity with our Camaro. We went from the Mustang 5 speed, which was a great car. That was Bertha, and Bertha was great. And now Mabel, the Camaro with the 8 speed automatic, has I think that's helped us not having to worry about the gearbox, but the sheer power of the car. So that's the other thing you look at. There's some powerful cars out there, without a doubt. Um, Powerful cars that didn't require modification to get you know get
Mhm.
powerful. I mean, these are for like ours, they're stock cars. The And so I think that has the capabilities of the cars. I think is kind of gives you a little bit confidence that it's going to stick or whatever. And and then I think the simulators coming into play. With a lot of people. Um, because the reality is most of us can't go to these tracks to do pre-runs. It's just not possible. And so the simulators help kind of level that playing field a little bit, I guess. Wendell, my simulators here behind us, Wendell's drove Worldwide Tech this morning that he hadn't driven before. And I hadn't either until the sim. And we're now doing it in virtual reality with the headset, meta headset, and that's changed a little.
It makes it it's actually kind of eerie because I first drove our local track, and it's actually incredible to me that how well it appears with a virtual headset, because you can look all around and it looks like you're there, which they added a little fluff in it, but that's been, I mean, just knowing where the turning is, knowing how to get out of the off grid onto the track is super helpful. So I think that's contributed to the speed creep. Everybody, number one, you can walk into a dealership and buy a basic race car, just write them a check. And then the second thing is the familiarity with the tracks. If it's with virtual reality or whatever, it's gotten quicker for sure.
Absolutely. Bryan, I know you do a lot of sim racing. I think I'm the odd duck out here. I mean, what do you think has been responsible for that?
Well, with the advent of of iRacing, and now with Assetto Corsa, and you've got people that are making the custom tracks, especially Wendell talking about Roebling. I've driven driven Roebling and have driven the virtual Roebling, and it is really amazing at how close these simulators are getting to actual real life. And with iRacing, they go out and spend days laser scanning. It's like with Road Atlanta or Sebring, where there are particular cracks in the asphalt.
Yeah.
And when you go over it in the sim, you feel that feedback in the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. iRacing's obviously is a lot more developed than most Assetto Corsa tracks are. And you look at it, they've got a limited number of tracks,
right?
That they have. That's the reason because the resource you have to get into it. But I'll tell you, it's I get back to the speed kill. I think that's probably, now that we're talking about it, think about it, that may be the biggest factor. Because I asked Wendell a minute ago after he got off of World Tech, how would you have felt if that had the first time you saw that track,
Sure.
which when we get out there next Sunday, or whenever it is, you can look at YouTubes, you can follow a car around it, but it's when you get on the sim and then in reality, it's two different things.
Well, sure. I mean, I would imagine it's sort of a capacity difference, right? So instead of having to use your mental capacity to learn the track and figure out your way around it, now you can use a little bit less for that since it's dialed into the muscle memory, and now you can focus on fine tuning the braking points and maximizing your grip and all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, I can see that, but I'm the odd duck out. I think I'm still in my head mentally playing F-Zero from Super Nintendo. But I'll tell you what is interesting, right? So you've got Bryan, you've got you gentlemen, and it used to be that video games and sort of VR you would think would be for teens and 20s and and kids, and it's not. I mean, the rigs and the setups are super sophisticated. I mean, a lot of them almost rival some of the ones that you'll see out at Fenway Racing, a lot of times, Roush Fenway, or some of the development stuff. What cool. So I think that is definitely a reason there. Bryan, why don't you go ahead?
Well, going back, to getting familiar with tracks and with sim racing, just DE days. I know you guys do quite a few DE days. With you coming up to one lap, you'll do some prep in the Camaro, and then tell us about both of your cars that you go out and do DEs with and actually run some organized racing with.
That's Wendell.
Well, we both got Panos, so I bought one, and then John drove it, and then he turned around and bought one. So his is a little more stouter than mine, but just mine is just DE car. He did some SCCA with his, and so I went back and bought a Miata, which I just dearly love. I'm better at driving a slow car fast than a fast car slow. So, the Miata, we kind of got a group that runs in some of the vintage racing, and that's been it's just so much fun. But the back to the sim, I was driving the sim, and I thought John really tried to make it. He had a leaf blower and some grass. When I went off, he blew it in my face as I went off at Roebling. So I thought it was pretty real. Now, I don't know about his wife. He may have to vacuum it up before she gets in here. But it is very, very real.
Yeah, not other than that, the DEs. I took the Camaro down to Homestead, Miami, with Steve's group. Bryan, you know them.
Yep.
And that at the end of February, and that was a lot of fun. Was Homestead. The hadn't I don't think we used the Camaro once, I think, in the fall out at Roebling Road. We really hadn't tracked it that much. But we got our new 2025 tires on it, so it's I guess we'll be knobbies off of it on the way up to South End.
So what tires are you running on there this year?
The same one we've ran the last 3 years, which have turned out to be good tires. The Continental Extreme Sport, DE D2s, Extreme Contact Sport D2s, I think. And they've for the last 3 years they've serviced us well. Obviously the wet dry abilities of it, and especially the wet on the transits, because that's always one of our fears, is getting out there and is this thing going to hold us at the speeds we're running on the transits? And I don't think I hadn't noticed anything with them. I mean, I haven't noticed any bad habits with them.
Yep.
It's going to be a little bit different this year, where zero trailer. We had some issues. Anyhow, we decided to delete the trailer, so we're going to be depending on those Continentals to hold up, because no spares.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can always strap them down to the roof, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's gonna alter our packing a little bit this year too.
I think you'll be fine. And just look, I mean, realistically, if you leave anything, if you forget anything, I don't think there's anywhere where we go, or anywhere in this country really anymore, where there's not a store. Pharmacies carry full-on clothing sections now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The biggest thing I think will be that potential safety blanket that we've had of carrying spares. Because ours is not a square setup, so we're able to carry a front and a rear. I think that, but you look at it overall, over the whole field, over the last 5 years, how many have really had issues on the road, other than the year Pat Whalen and some of the other ones with the vets that had those fragile wheels busted them. So overall, I mean, y'all tell us, how often do we really see it in a given year?
I think for a standard track alignment that a manufacturer suggests, you'll generally be quite all right. I think the problems that we've seen really come down to super aggressive alignments, a whole lot of negative camber, a bunch of toe out, to try and help get that car to corner, help with some of the stability, and that will just destroy the tires very, very quickly. We saw that last year, and that was a focal point that became last year was us really this year going to be paying attention to the wear, because you bring up a very important point, and one that our partners at the Tire Rack help us with frequently. And even when Bryan and I were there a month ago, going over everything with them and speaking about the future of the event, and as we play around with some different variables in terms of in terms of the future, one of the big concerns was, okay, so if we increase the mileage again, will these new 200 treadwear tires make it? Will it be safe on the road? Because yeah, they'll make it on track, but there's a lot more distance that we would then build into the road mileage. So what is that ideal trade-off between being able to compete on the track, but also making it more of a challenge again on the road with the transits? So there's a few variables that we've been playing with, from where we start from, to the routes that we take, to the distances between the tracks, and to specifying differences in tires potentially. So there's a lot that we're talking about, but the road safety is something that I think a lot of teams sometimes overlook. They look at the track performance first, but forget that to get to the track, you have to get to the track.
Yeah.
It's,
so thinking about that, the alignment and all those issues with those folks that had those, that's self-induced.
Oh yeah.
Those are self-induced versus, a lot of us, like, we're keeping everything stock. I mean, we're, OEM specs, setup, and everything. And so guys that are self-induced, they did that themselves, which is fine. I mean, they did it for their reasons. But like for us, and I think maybe a majority of the field, just keep us safe out there on the roads.
Yeah. I mean, running something like, trying to bump out to -3 degrees camber or something to that effect, 3.5, you should still be fine given the event mileage and the track time, even without a square setup, given, as long as you're not beating on them on the road, realistically, because, remember, on the track, your wheel's going to deflect anyhow, and you're going to pretty much even it out and save the tires on the outside. So it's finding that balance, which is going to be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, and if a ton more miles are added to the event, which will cause a lot more emphasis on people looking at tire wear and everything, that may change the aggressive setups on a lot of them, which then will shrink the field competitiveness maybe.
Well, I think what you're going to see is it's going to be an equalizer, because you're not going to be able to use maybe as aggressive of a tire, or maybe you can, but you're going to have to be a little more careful on the track. So maybe if you're over driving, you have to back off, otherwise you're going to wear the tires out. I think my gut tells me around that 6,000, 6,500 mile mark is probably the sweet spot. Anything over that, I think you run into a lot of potential issues, but that's where we're kind of looking at now.
Okay.
So, all right, Bryan, you're up.
So, this being your 5th year, and you've kind of figured out the whole formula to running this event, and you guys have done some other amateur racing. What do you see as the future of amateur motorsports and events like ours, and then the other sanctioning bodies with their race series?
It seems, we always worry about that. Are there enough new blood coming in to keep it sustained? We're the old guys now. When we show up at the track, I mean, we're the old guys most of the time. Started running VDCA some, and we're middle-aged in a lot of that group. but it's good to see a lot of younger people coming in. Some of the SCCA school that we went through, there was a guy, he was 18, and I mean, just real energetic. It was good to see him and his father. There are a lot of guys out there like that would be a parent and child. It's great to see those become involved. Um, one thing about one lap is that kind of, it doesn't bother me, but it worries me, is that everybody that we talk to wants to come back next year. So how do we get new people in to keep it sustained when I don't want to give up our spot.
Right.
We
don't want you to.
Right. Yeah. No, we're not going to. So. But Bryan, back to your, one of the things that you look at now is like Roebling Road. It's packed. It is if you wanted to, as a private person or an entity wanted to go rent a track or rent a day out there, this year's done. I mean, 2025 is not an option, and and they would tell you, okay, 2026, here's these few dates, and they're not the best dates. The best dates are long gone, and I think that's happening with. It appears it's happening at tracks because if you look at I think it's Motorreg, Motorsport Reg. One of them that you can go on and pick events within 100 miles, 300 miles, and I'm just staggered. I mean, you look in there like you pick out if you say 300 miles and you pick one weekend, it's page after page of events going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it. I don't see it backing down. I see it increasing, and then you look at the content of the magazines. I mean, Grassroots Motorsports magazine, and any of them, Road and Track, Car and Driver. They're not thin in their pages, which would be indicative, I think, of a lowering market.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I'll respond a little bit to sort of first the idea of how do we keep the event growing and keep new blood into it. So there's a couple of different things going on. One, we've got the seniors who are aging out for various reasons. And we touched on this a little bit in our last interview, which is going to drop today or tomorrow with Scott Mattis. And we talked about the shift from one lappers being young and full of energy, and now to more of a they're getting older and life happens. So we've had some drop out via attrition, health reasons, family reasons, realizing that, while they love this, they might come back to it, but they have other things to do with grandkids or that they don't want to miss with that, which is perfectly understandable. Last year was neat because we had, I think, Bryan, it was close to, 50%, if not a little bit more new blood last year, which was neat. And this year we're seeing that again. So for those that, and which is one of the reasons why, you'll see Brock go on and he says, hey, if you're thinking of not coming or if you know that you can't, let us know now. And this year, look, Brock and I talk nearly daily, and it's one of these deals where there's nothing going on because nobody's dropping out. Normally by now, we're in a tizzy. We're trying to sort stuff out, find co-drivers for people's, sort out different issues, make sure tires are there for them, vehicle can get in, and it's been quiet. It's been very, very calm. So I think that is going to balance out, I think, as long as we continue doing things. And to your point of opening it up a little bit, we're looking to make some announcements on that fairly soon with some different style one lap events to open up the experience to bring more people in different parts of the country to the brand and to our ethos and how we operate. And then, you kind of you talked about as well, the track days. And that's something that Bryan and I are always talking about. We've spoken about this with Tire Rack, and it's a concern for us because for us, obviously, we have to rent tracks back to back to back to back to back. And whereas 10 years ago, 15 years ago, getting a track was making a phone call, hey, can we come this day? Yeah, sure. And it wouldn't break the bank. Now it is really, a seller's market, or excuse me, a buyer's market for that one, right? So the tracks have their time, and we're all going there with cash in hand saying, please, sir, may I have a date? And they're laughing at you. So it comes down to the longer term relationships that you have with them and being a good renter and trying to monetize it the best you can for you and for them, and be a good partner. I know when we do our veterans event, we're very lucky to have New Jersey Motorsport Park as a partner in that, who gives us cost for the most part because they believe in the mission there. But for things like the one lap, it's a challenge for sure, and it's one that's not getting any easier. And you think about it, where we start from in South Bend every year, and this is why we've had that discussion. Starting in South Bend is great. We're at Tire Rack, but it also limits us a little bit to where we can go because we have to find a track for that Sunday. And I'm sure you guys are aware, good luck finding a Sunday rental only. It's got to be a multiple day.
Yep.
So for that, we're leaning heavily on our partners at NASA, our sanctioning body, because if they are there, can we tack on a day, or can we have one of those days and add another one on for you, either at the beginning or the end? So again, finding those creative ways and being able to utilize those partnerships, I think is good, real key for the future. As as some tracks go away, other tracks materialize and then push people away, and then it's still I think we all know which one we're talking about there, that was on the schedule, which isn't now. So the availability of tracks also shrinks. So it's a challenge, to be sure. So for this year, I'm going to focus in for a little bit before we start wrapping up. So for this year, let's get back to some of the traditional questions. What track are you looking forward to the most? And what is the biggest helpful hint over the past 5 years that you've picked up for doing this event?
The track that I'm looking forward to the most is going to be Pit Race. Number one, last year was our first year. Loved it. Going back again this year. And then Wendell and I have an extra carrot there. We've been invited to go to the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix in July to bring our Panhazes.
That's a good time.
We're going to bring them up there because it's going to be the first ever Panhaz reunion.
Okay.
So all Panhaz, they've invited all Panhaz race cars and drivers, and anyone's got street cars. But they've got track time for us now. They'll be putting us at the ground pounders. Yep. But hauling the Panhazes up there is the cherry we're looking for this year. But it's, being able to drive it one lap obviously makes us feel even better, for it. And as far as what we've learned over the years, or what I've learned is, you hit on it earlier, is as you get more familiar with it, I've learned to relax more at the track. Other than the moment that I'm fixing to go on, or Wendell's fixing to go on, but just, don't get stressed out over what's happening, what you're missing. And to me, that's been my biggest takeaway, is just, really enjoy the camaraderie, and don't get, don't hyper focus on, everything else. The driving the car on tracks, it's going to take care of itself. Either you're going to put a good time or you're not.
Absolutely. All right, Bryan, you get the last question.
Woo! So, everybody talks, that's done the event multiple years. They talk about the one lap family and how this is just a big family reunion. You guys have known each other for a couple of years, and tell us about your friendship over the year, and how through friendship, how you guys actually became family.
I don't know how much longer you want this interview to go, but briefly, we met in junior college and took chemistries together and everything, trying to get in pharmacy school. Ended up going to pharmacy school at UGA, roomed together. And anyway, I met my wife at UGA, and John got out and got married. Anyhow, our kids got married.
We were the best man in each other's wedding.
Yeah. So we've been knowing each other a while. And now our kids have kids. So we've got shared grandkids, and that's the ones we're keeping this week. And but that's our personal family. But then the family within one lap is incredible. And we talked about this last year, but we contact some of the ones in that group on a daily basis. I mean, my phone just dinged. I've got hearing aids in, and it just dinged. And I know somebody off of that one lap group sent something. And but the friendships that you form there, it's really incredible. And that's one of the main things that I enjoy about this is you got all these people that you've met and know and look forward to seeing every year. Even Solomon and Bryan, we want to see y'all. But it's just something special that very few get to do. and we are so glad that against Brock's better judgment, he let us in 4 years ago.
5 years ago.
5 years ago, as a quote from him, he let us in, and we certainly are appreciative.
Yeah, and one thing that about the group and the friends you have, with our group of, and it's mostly folks from Iowa, Colorado, that's all we've got really
Massachusetts.
Close. Yeah, Massachusetts. Yeah, is that we really feel like this family, and there's not competition with us. We know that out of our group, there's guys a lot, Mark John, Scott Mattis, and Pat Whalen. They're moving. I mean, they set a pace quite a bit quicker than we do. But when they come off the track and we're all back together, we don't even really talk about it except for a few minutes. How was your lap? The rest of it, we're just BSing and catching up and wondering what Solomon and Bryan's up to.
Nothing good.
Secret squirrel stuff.
Exactly, yeah. Right. Where they're making comments online.
I have one question before you jump
in. By all means, floor is yours.
I think I had brought this up in one of the boards or somewhere, maybe even talking to Bryan at one point. As far as like registration every year for the event, I know that y'all have talked about maybe different ways or whatever, but this is one thing I threw out, and I'm going to throw it out again. So what if you ever put the thought at the banquet and the awards and everything on the Saturday after the event? Right then, you say, okay, we're going to open up registration only for the people in this room, and you've got to sign up today with a $500 or some dollar non-refundable. That gets you on the list for next year. It's only open when we walk out of this door at 3:00 this afternoon on Saturday or whatever time. It's closed.
Sure. So it's not a bad idea. I can tell you what Brock will say because we've had this conversation. So let me go into my Brock mode for a second. Right? It's
well, I don't, because everybody who wants to register, they know, because I tell them at the event that it's gonna start, like September or August, or I say it, and then they should be there, and if they get it, because I gotta leave it fair for everybody. But those that are always going to come back that I know, they're going to be in there anyhow. So don't worry about it. And have them turn their phone sideways and upside down. I don't care. So that's pretty much the answer I'm going to get. But, from a pragmatic standpoint, also, you go back to one of the comments that you made earlier, right? How do you bring new blood into the event if it's the same people coming back? So if it's the same people in that room who you're saying, give me money now, sure, from a capital intense purpose and raising capital for next year's event, I love it. From the standpoint of making it sort of fair and having X amount of slots open, it becomes harder then, right? So it's finding that balance. Gotcha. I think the answer might lie in with, it's somewhere with, we're going, putting out a
and notice that we're going to open up, and I think the fairest way to do this, given everybody's different time zones, and obviously we hold a certain amount, percentage for people who we know just aren't online. Some of those who are certainly older, who are not going to register that way, who register via carrier pigeon every year. People like Howard, those guys who are not going to go on and tilt their phone 4 ways from Sunday, right? So we have a percentage that we have reserved for that. And then because we have people different parts of the world, realistically, right? So I think, and different time zones. So we open up, let's say, 30 slots at this time, and then we'll open up another 30 slots at this time. And then the remaining might just be the ones that we already have in there and the ones that are sponsor slots and manufacturer slots that we hold for those purposes, for those that help support the event and help keep it sustainable. So I think something like that might be where the future lies, and just saying, okay, at this such and such time, this is when this is going to open up, and then just free market at that point.
Yeah. I guess, I haven't obviously paid attention to other events, all other rallies and things like that, how they do it, because I know a lot of other big events, they're probably facing the same issue.
Well, yes and no. I think there's also a difference between the type of individual, and the price point is a big one. So one of the main concerns for us is always keeping it affordable, because we want to get those first timers. We, for example, last year we had a great conversation with some of the guys from, I guess it was Grid Life or SCCA, Bryan. I'm trying to remember who it was, but it was, we were out, it was like Cinco de Mayo when we were out, and we had tons of Taco Bell, and Scott Coors bringing all the beer out, and we were having different conversations within different parking lots. I think I was up until about 4 a.m. as we were chatting with everybody, and I was getting to meet and really understand some of the mentality behind the new guys who were in their 20s, right, or early young guys. And it was interesting because for them, they always thought this would be something unattainable, but when they looked into the specifics of it, how the sausage was made, so to speak, it was something that was attainable. They could afford it to get on all these tracks, to have this adventure. And I think that's super important, because it's easy to say, well, the tracks are raising their prices, so therefore we have to raise ours. And we've done that. I mean, I think if you look over the past 20 years, we've raised the entry fee by a total of, wow, right, which is pretty astounding when you look at everything else and the inflation around it. And we've been successful in doing so in large part to our friends like Tire Rack and the other sponsors who we bring on every year that help offset those rising costs, because they find value in the event. But for us, it's keeping the event reasonable is super, super important. So a lot of those are, upwards of, $15,000-$20,000, and to do a week-long rally, you're looking at 20-25 grand easily. Easily.
Good point.
Right. So for us at $4,000, or I think what is 4 or 4,200, I forget where we are right now. It's fairly reasonable, and we every decision that we make, even balancing out safety decisions. When we were a couple of years ago, we're discussing Hans, right? Whether or not we were going to mandate that, and it was really a balance of, well, do we need to ask everybody to spend an additional $1,000, or if not more, to incorporate a Hans into their safety setup? But the determining factor came down to, is $1,000 worth your safety and that little protection? And if you are, and I think what tipped the scale for us was, if you're going to be doing all the recon and practicing and getting out on track, you should really be in one anyhow. And if this is the impetus for you to do it, so be it. So we were able to do that. But every decision that we make, and Brock has been a tremendous mentor in that with me and with Bryan, I know, is that whenever something comes up, it's always looked at from the standpoint of safety first, and then affordability next. Are we keeping it affordable? Are we limiting or making more of a barrier for anybody who wants to come and join this? Because at the end of the day, the event really is to spread Brock Sr.'s message of, good drivers can traverse the country quickly and without incident is what it started with. But then it progressed into it really is a celebration of the automobile, the automotive community. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what political leaning you have, it doesn't matter anything in your personal life. This is the common denominator. If you're here, you're one of us, you're out here to have a good time, and we've got your back. So the more we can make it inclusive of that, I think is what we're going to strive for today, tomorrow, and and in the past. So that's where we are with this. So good points all around.
Yeah, a good point too is with this car group period, and all of us out there, we don't have to ask each other, why are you doing this?
Nope.
Versus a distant family member, someone looks at you like, tell me again why you're doing this. We don't have that. We all know why we're all doing it.
Yeah.
And that's such a big equalizer too.
Yep. I mean, look at this, and I'll wrap with this, right? So we do a lot of interviews, we see a lot of people, and barring new people, I think Bryan and I beforehand, we're excited to talk with you because in a lot of cases, we'll communicate online throughout the year and we'll have different messages. But I'm happy to be here today to talk with you guys, to have these conversations. Truly, it's joyful. And it's something that we look forward to as well from an organization standpoint. So it's that family element that we talk about again and again and again, where this doesn't become a chore, it doesn't become something that it's a challenge. It still has its challenge elements too, but it's something that you look forward to 100% because the people you're with have your back and they will get you to the finish line, whatever it takes. So John, Wendell, I can't thank you enough for being with us today. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys. We do truly look forward to it every year. We look forward to seeing you guys. You're one of the great teams of the event, and that we love having you year after year. Bryan, again, my co-driver and cohort in all of this, thank you. So for the 2025 TIRAC One Lap of America, presented by Grassroots Motorsport Magazine, I'm Solomon, Bryan, the Wing Grandpas. We'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks so much for watching.
Sounds good.
Yeah.